Welcome to another edition of Fishing for Answers. Today, I'm here with cybersecurity legend BZ. Hey, do you have any fun stories to start off with today?
Well, I think one interesting story is how I actually got into cyber security. When I was a student at the University of Alabama, roll tide. It looks like we are
Hold tight.
both
Well,
wearing the crimson color right there.
yes, we
I'm
are.
a bit outburn, right? Okay, but anyway, so I was a pre-med student. So my original dream was to go to medical school. Uh, uh, One interesting thing that happened is I think I was a sophomore or a junior. I was part of the, I think it was Eta Six Sigma Pi, the pre-med honor society, and they allowed us to actually shadow doctors at the university clinic. And most of those doctors were still medical students, or they just completed their program. But anyway, one of the doctors I was following, very very smart guy, but every time he would speak to patient, kind of write down what the symptoms were and stuff, and then he would go to the back room. They had like this black book, and they would look at the symptom and then kind of decide what to prescribe to the patient. And I was like, that's not exactly the type of doctor I want to be. These really look like glorified pharmacists, in my opinion. It doesn't really take much brain to do this. So I decided then I'm not just going to go for the MD. I'm going to go for the MD PhD, so I can do medical research and really understand how medication interact and all of that. Because that was back in 1998, I think,
Okay.
1997. And back then, there was about 100,000 people in the US that died because of doctors' mistakes. So definitely not the type of doctor I wanted to be. Now, the MD PhD program, I was going to go to UAB in Birmingham. It was extremely competitive. So I didn't get into that program. So what I decided was to go ahead and start working on my PhD in microbiology. And then my idea was once I get the PhD, then I'm going to go ahead and get into medical school. But no, 9/11 happened, and I was married, and we were expecting our first child. So I needed to work full time. As a full-time graduate student, my stipend was like $1,000 a month. So $12,000 a year, there was no way I could take care of my family. So I am what we would call the ABD, right? All but the dissertation. I
Yeah.
met all of the requirements for PhD program except for the research and final dissertation. But anyway, during that time, that was in 2001, I'm like, okay, I absolutely have to have a full-time job. So interestingly enough, when I was a student, I was working at the university library as a tech assistant. So they hired me as a computer tech, and like they say, the rest is history. I pretty much started working on my certification to become a Microsoft certified system engineer. It was around 2000, 2001. And around that time, Microsoft started to take security very seriously. So they had a brand new track for security expert. And I took all of those classes, and I really loved security. And from that time, I really wanted to do security full time. And like I said earlier, the rest is history.
Well, I want to hear a little bit about that history because looking at your resume, it's impressive. I see Navy Reserve Information Cyber Warfare Commander, Forbes Technology Council, Harvard Business Review, all kinds. I mean, you've got what, like 12 different boards that you're a member of or something like that. Very impressive. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Thanks. Yeah. So I mentioned earlier, so 2001, right? 9/11 happened. At the time, I was not a US citizen yet. My wife was, and our kids who was going to be born that year was also. But this was going to be at birth. So I really wanted to do something to kind of preserve our way of life. So I was convinced I needed to join the military. Actually, let me go back a couple of years earlier. In 1996, that's when I came to the state. I don't know why, but I felt in my heart that I needed to become an expert in three things. Three things were going to be extremely important in the 21st century. You know, this new millennium. Really, I felt like technology was only going to get more important and more significant in everything we did. I felt like leadership was extremely important. Being able to influence people and lead people, have some type of consensus, and organize our effort to accomplish a specific strategy. And then I also felt like business. You had to be able to run a business. Now, at the time, I was pre-med, and I was thinking I would become an MD, and then maybe later PhD, and then I have my own practice. So, see, I need to learn about money when running a business, lead people, the nurses, or whoever my employee, and then also be able to use technology, because I could see even in biology how much technology was being more and more integrated in everything we did. But anyway, and as far as leadership, I really felt like the military was the best organization to learn to be a leader. So I was a freshman at the University of Alabama. I tried to join the ROTC, the Army ROTC program at the University of Alabama. But again, I wasn't a US citizen. I was not a permanent resident. So they asked me to go Pakistan. I'm like, okay, maybe later. And then after 9/11, again, I was like, okay, I have to do something. So I talked to the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marine, and all four of them told me to go Pakistan since I wasn't a US citizen or a permanent resident. So I said, I'll be back. But at least I was very clear after talking to all of those recruiters that the Navy and the Air Force were really the only two branches that were very attractive to me. It seemed to me like being in the Army or the Marine Corps was required a lot of physical labor and not really a bunch of your brain, right? And I was like the Navy and the Air Force. Those guys are really super smart and they use a lot of tech. But anyway, 3 years later, I became a permanent resident of the US. That was in October. So I returned to the recruiter. I'm like, okay, you said I need to be a permanent resident. Here I am. Can I join? And at the time, I already had a degree as well. So like maybe I can join in as an officer. But like, no, officer is reserved for US citizens only. But since you do have a green card, but you do have a degree, maybe instead of bringing you in as an E1, we can bring you in like as a petty officer, E4, which is a pretty good deal. You are pretty much skipping over free pay grades. But then again, they're like, yeah, but if you're gonna be in IT, though, you have to have a security clearance secret, and you are not a US citizen yet, so you're not eligible. So we're gonna have to start you at the very bottom as an A1. But okay, no problem. I went to bootcamp 2005, and then after bootcamp, they promoted me to E3, which is Seaman, and I had to become an E3 until the day I became a US citizen. So the day after I became a US citizen, I was in 2006. I went back to the officer recruiter. I told you I'll be back, and I started the process to become a commissioned officer in the US Navy. So and then I was also eligible to take the advancement exam to E4, which I passed it. It was pretty straightforward and easy. And I wasn't even in E4 for maybe 6 or 7 months. Then I received my commission in 2007. So I've been an information warfare officer since then. So hopefully that answers your question. But I have always been very fascinated with computers and security. And I also moved to Silicon Valley. That was in 2014, so 10 years ago. So my experience, I've worked for higher education organization, the US Navy, the US Army, so the US government, and then a bunch of high-tech companies in Silicon Valley as well. So it's been pretty interesting to see how different organizations kind of value security and implement security control, right, to ensure confidentiality, integrity, and availability of their data.
Very cool story. So just a little background on myself. I actually spent about 20 years running red teams. I myself didn't realize cybersecurity was a career early on, and spent a little bit of time outside of that, IT, a little bit in marketing. That was actually my degree, believe it or not. But I spent 20 years running some of the top red teams in the country, worked for the SEC, the FDIC. And in my career, humans were always the weakest link, and there was never a good solution for it. And I felt like, humans are our biggest asset, not our weakest link. We're just not doing enough with them. And so that's why I ended up founding PhishFirewall. To that point, you've got the opportunity to work in, all kinds of different sectors, from higher ed to the military over to tech in Silicon Valley. So, from a human perspective, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned throughout your career?
Well, yeah, I think you are absolutely true. I guess human really are our weakest link because sometimes the bad guys, they cannot penetrate via firewall or get access technologically speaking to our system. And if you can't hack the system, then the easiest thing to do is to hack the human, right? Sometimes I wish we had some type of security patches we can just upload to people's brain and then they would be patched and fixed, but that's not possible because the thing we come to is training. Like one thing I've really learned in the US Navy is we kind of have to train the way we fight, right? So I think simulation training awareness is extremely important, right? From the board of director, the C-level suite, all the way down to all of the employees, the lowest rank employees within the organization. It's really all hands on deck, right?
Yeah.
Because we have to be right pretty much 100% of the time. The bad guys only have to be right once, right?
Isn't that the truth?
And it only takes really one person who even has regular access to your system to be able to provide access to one of the bad guys, and from there they can elevate their access and like have it. So it's extremely important for everyone within the organization. In many ways, every time I lead cybersecurity, I kind of feel like every single employee of the organization really kind of works with me. They are all part of the cyber security team. Whether they do marketing, sales, engineering, it doesn't matter. We really have to work together to ensure the confidentiality in integrity and availability of our most precious data. So I think really the way to improve our stance as an organization is to really use training and increase the awareness of everybody within the organization. I guess another way to say that is we are only as strong as our weakest link, and we just have to make sure everybody is on board.
Yeah, I sort of think, you mentioned right out of the gate that you wished we could just upload a patch to people's brains. I see those simulations, not the simulations that we run to see if, how far someone will go or, what our risk is, but the simulations that we run to educate people. I see those as being the way that we plant human virus definitions. There's actually this behavioral science principle called identical elements theory. And it's the principle behind when you buy a new car and all of a sudden you start seeing that car everywhere, but you didn't before. That's identical elements theory. And I believe we can apply that to cybersecurity. And by running those simulations, making sure that they realize their mistake and they understand the red flags really well, we create that definition really strongly in their brain. And then all of a sudden this identical elements theory kicks in, and it doesn't matter if they're being targeted over, through vishing or smishing or social media. They've learned the principles, and now they're going to, have that red flag sort of alert in their subconscious. I believe that's the number one way that we can help protect our organization against it. Unfortunately, though, we can't simulate all of the different types of attacks. So talking about those more sensitive ones, well, let's just take romance scams. They're on the rise. They are impacting almost every organization, not directly the organization, but their people. And it's one of those things that's very difficult to help to mitigate because you can't really simulate it. So I don't know, what are your thoughts around these more complex situations inside of cybersecurity?
Well, I think training awareness definitely can really help a lot, right? Help us improve our cyber security posture. Earlier, I mentioned, like in the Navy, we tend to train the way we fight. We are human and we are creature of habits, I believe. And the way someone acts at home is usually the way they're going to be acting at work and everywhere, right? So one of what I try to do is to get people trained, not just on the way they need to behave at work and use resources that belong to the organization, but also the way they do at home when nobody is watching and doing what. So this way they have habits that they can really start to enforce everywhere they are, even for their own personal businesses. And to get the attention, especially these days, it's a little bit easier because every day we hear about breaches. Like it looks like AT&T was breached not too long ago, and many times even with company like AT&T, you would have to give them your social security number so they can check your credit and see if you are worthy for the payment or whatnot. So we really give out a lot of information to a lot of vendors out there. And the other thing too is it may not be, maybe you do trust AT&T, but what about their subcontractor and third parties who also need to access that data? But anyway, having said all of that, people definitely care a lot about their own personal security outside of work. Like me, for example, being in the Navy, we've been breached so many times, and we used to use our social security number as our DoD ID. When I joined the Navy 20 years ago, that was the case, and we've got much smarter now. But basically, my SSN is available pretty much to the Chinese government and a whole bunch of people out there. So what can I do to protect myself personally? And I think when I talk to my colleagues about that, they can definitely identify and understand how they really need to change their behavior and no, maybe not become completely paranoid like I am, but be more have a more secure consciousness, if I may say so. And also, in many ways, it's just using common sense too, right? Because like one of the organizations I work for, this person in HR, she got an email from somebody who pretended to be the CEO of the company, who said, "Send me all of the W-2s of all of the employees." And supervisors typed like 2 feet across from her desk, and the CEO of the office next door, she didn't bother to just ask, "What does this mean? Why would the CEO ask me that?" She just went ahead and just clicked on the link, sent her all of our W-2s. And I was in Japan at the time. I was trying to do my taxes, working for the Navy, and the IRS is like, "No, you've already done your taxes." Back then, I think I was a Lieutenant Bob Zinger. "No, taxes are already done. We don't owe you a refund." I'm like, "What in the world?" But anyway, since that day, every time I do my taxes, I have to give the IRS a specific PIN number that they give me every single year to make sure it is me and not somebody else pretending to be me. I freeze my credit as well. But the idea being that this is impacting pretty much everybody around across the country and around the world, and people better take this seriously. So I think as people become more aware of their own vulnerability and how they can better secure their own information, they would carry on those good habits within the enterprise as well. So basically, training and simulation, I think, extremely important, especially when it comes to phishing. But I think it's also a good idea to kind of make it like a game, like the gamification of education. I think that works pretty well, where people have some type of fun as well, and sometimes you can even give out prizes to the people who act the way you think they should when they are in scenarios where they receive, whether it's email, text, or whatever, and just make it a part of a culture where it is celebrated, and you reward people who do the right thing. And really, the intent, in my opinion, is to really change the human behavior, get them to really think before they click, right? Ask a question, reach out to their friends, their colleague, and not try to really attack this all on their own, especially during the time, during the global pandemic, right? 2020, 2021, everybody was working from home and really isolated from everybody else, trying to have that sense of community even when we are physically apart, right? And really thinking before doing anything. And I think common sense will help a lot too, just with the way people think and act.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and it's all so interconnected. I don't know that it's necessarily paranoia, because the reality is we are being attacked every day. They are out to get us. It would be paranoia if it wasn't true. But the reality is that the internet has redrawn the threat landscape completely, and I mean AI is redrawing it once again. But the
True.
internet in and of itself has really changed the entire threat landscape for us, because now, instead of the threat being across the globe in some distant land, the threat
Mhm.
lives in our living rooms, in our boardrooms, in our conference rooms. And so, it really has changed. To that point, what sort of, you mentioned training a lot. And so what sort of tips do you have on how to make training more effective? Because, so much training tends to be lost on deaf ears. And I know that a lot of companies struggle with really getting that retention.
Mhm. Yes. So, for example, 20 years ago is when the Navy started taking cybersecurity more seriously, and 10 years after that, they actually started a brand new core, right? The information dominance core, which became the information warfare community. And what we used to do is once a year, it would take maybe 90 minutes to 2 hours. Everybody was required to take computer-based training about cyber security once a year, usually every October, beginning of a new fiscal year. And I joined October of 2004. So that's when I took my first Navy cyber security training. Now, what ended up happening is people started to memorize the question and the answer and just click, 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 click. Let me just do this. Check in the box. Okay, I've done my training without really understanding what the risks were and how they could really apply, not just at work for the Navy, but at home as well. But even in the industry in Silicon Valley, many of the companies I work for, they have to be compliant to something. They use some type of security framework, whether it's
Yeah.
SOC 2, ISO 27001, or PCI, or whatever it is. All of those security framework, they require you to at least have training once, right? So it is a requirement when you hire someone, and hopefully at least once a year after that. So some people, what they do is, okay, they have this awareness training once a year. Everybody comes and goes through it. But again, for most people, it's like, that's not my job. I have nothing to do with it. I don't know how this training relates to me. I'm supposed to be doing marketing or building databases or whatever. It's kind of, this is in the way of me doing work. So that's why I think first you kind of need to have change the culture. Yes, this is actually
Yeah.
part of what you do. Whatever you do, you have to do it in a safe and secure way. And I think you have to make it fun as well.
Yeah.
Cybersecurity, kind of like privacy and the law, is kind of dry. It's not too fun, but you can make it fun. Right? There is a lot of stories that you can share and make it relevant to the people, especially when it comes to cybersecurity in today's age. I think it's pretty easy to make sure people understand, hey, you've already been affected by this. Your personal data has been compromised. You may not be able to get a mortgage because somebody stole your social security number. You may not be able to get a loan for a car. So this affects you personally, and kind
Yeah.
of get their attention. So I think making it fun, making it memorable, and as interactive as you can have. Like the last job I had, for example, I used to work with all of our vendors and ask them to send us a whole bunch of swag for October, for the entire month of October. Once
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
week, my team would go and have like a 30
I got a
minute
bunch of
fun
boxes in that room about to
training.
go out.
Yes, exactly. And then when you ask questions and they interact with you, you give them swag and stuff. And maybe by the end of the month, also try to work with the C-suite to ask them to give me $500 or $1,000 and kind of give out prizes for the people who come voluntarily to those meetings and so forth. But anyway, just make it very, very interesting,
Yeah.
exciting, and fun. And then once we do the training like that, and another thing my team used to do is we would do those simulation for phishing. We would send them a start a phishing campaign and see who's going to click on the link or download the attachment. And when they did, then we would provide them remediation training. Okay, that's fine. You did the wrong thing, and this is why, and this is what you should have done. So go back and complete this portion of the training, like 5 minutes video or something. And then we also would reward the people who not only didn't click on the link or download the attachment, but who actually forwarded via email to our spam inbox to let the security team know, hey, this doesn't look right. I think you guys need to look into it. And then the security team could tag that email and even remove it from all of the emails within the enterprise, so that some other people wouldn't even have a chance to wonder if this is spam or not. And those people, they would be mentioned by name publicly, rewarded for doing the right thing. So things like that, I think, just make it a lot of fun, and I think it really helps the people not just have intellectual knowledge of, no, this is cybersecurity, this is what I need to do, but actually internalize it, the concept, and actually take action, right? The proper action that you want them to take. So with rewards, trying to get them to always do the right thing, whether they are in the office or at home.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Make it entertaining, make it short, have the high frequency sort of touch points so that it's continuous and front of mind. One thing I've found is that when you move into the continuous awareness approach, even if I'm talking to you about passphrases, it makes you more secure in your email, because all of these topics remind, to the average user, it's all the same thing. And so, it's more cybersecurity, more cybersecurity. But no, I completely agree. And one of the things that I like to do, because I did come from that ethical hacking background, is tell stories. A bit, defenders can do it just as well. Tell the stories from the defensive point of view. And so,
Yes.
I really think that it's telling stories, it's simplifying what we're doing that really will be more effective. And I think I went through the same DoD training as you. Did you help Alice pick a password?
Yes, yes, exactly. I believe this side does it for all of the branches in the
Yeah, they're still
military.
doing it,
Yes.
or at least as
But
of a few years back, whenever my clearance
it's
lapsed.
much more improved now, though. You can no longer just click done. I mean, you really have to go through some type of scenario and click on things, and really they're trying to elicit your understanding.
Yeah. Do you think it works?
Yes, I think it does work. It's definitely better than nothing at all. But then also, different commands, especially in information warfare, we have our own additional training and things that we do. But at least as a baseline, it gets people to really think about, okay, what are the consequences to what I do, what I click. Now another thing I know in the Navy we do that really helps this a lot is we always flag any email that doesn't come from within the DoD domain, so people know if it's external or internal. And then if you are sending an email that has an attachment or a link, you are requested to always sign those. This way, when the email comes signed, digitally signed, we know it came from you and only from you. Nobody else could have signed it. So that definitely increases a lot of our confidence in just day to day. And then when we get those external email, what happens is all of the links now, they don't go straight to the website, but they go to some type of proxy that makes sure there is no malicious malware or stuff that they're sending you to. And then in addition to that too, so many times you have to manually copy the URL and then paste it. So you see what you're doing. But anyway, they do a whole bunch of things in the background to encourage people from doing the right thing. So yes, I think generally speaking, it's definitely better than nothing at all. And today it's definitely better than the first cybersecurity training I took 20 years ago. So I think there is continual improvement. I think they are receiving a lot of feedback from a lot of people, especially members of the information warfare community. Nothing is perfect, but I definitely see a lot of improvement. Yeah.
All right. So let's switch gears a little bit here. Artificial intelligence. I know the world's been saying our AI is going to take over since 1958 or something like that. But truly this time we're seeing that polarizing shift and that drastic increase or very quick increase in technology. So
Yes.
with that, there's a lot of amazing, fun, cool things we can do. There's also threats.
Yes.
From a security awareness perspective, what should we be educating our people about when it comes to AI?
Well, I guess I would call it responsible AI practices. Just I think it was a couple of weeks ago. I talked at the CDM media event, and we talked about AI and cyber security. I think one of the things the leadership needs to be concerned about, right, is the data that you use to train your LLM,
Yeah.
right, and making sure that your intellectual property doesn't become public domain, right? So I
Yeah.
think that is something that a company definitely needs to be concerned about. You can definitely use even some of those popular generative things like ChatGPT, Copilot, and so forth, but set it up in such a way in your. Well, I guess the number one is your people are already using it, whether you have a
Yeah,
policy or not.
they
They
are.
are
They
already
are
doing so. So
100%. I agree.
you need to catch up. So it's better to have the organization as a whole needs to have a policy at a minimum, like guidelines of what you need to
Yeah.
do and how you can use this. And then for the people who are using your computers, your data, making sure that it doesn't get outside of the enterprise domain, and start training chat GPT outside of your walls for everybody else in the world to get that. And I think you also need to have clear ethical AI strategy. So have some type of framework for ethics. Because the thing with AI and a lot of the other technologies out there, including the internet, you can do a lot of good with it, but you can also do a lot of bad. So having those, very, very clear, like principle like fairness, right, transparency, accountability, privacy, and security, I think needs to be part of what you are thinking about now. Me being a minority in this country, also making sure that the data that you are using is good enough or diverse enough, right? Because we want to make sure that all of the people are well represented, not leave anybody out. I think everybody, including women and minorities in my country, need to see themselves represented in the technology as well. I think that is important. So I think some type of governance structure, I think, is important, and fostering a culture of ethical responsibility. Again, this is not something that the cyber security or information security department will do on their own, or the IT. I think it's across all of the entire organization. All of the business function needs to have a skin in the game, right?
Yeah.
So, and also the way you develop AI, I talked about bias, having some type of bias mitigation strategy for the data, using diverse data, but also leading with security and privacy in mind from the get go, and not just have it like an add-on sometime in the future. But yeah, I think if you include all of the elements I just mentioned. Again, I don't think anything is perfect out there, but you will be much better than the organization next door who doesn't have any idea what the people are doing, or where to take AI. Because AI is definitely here to disrupt everything we
It
are
is.
we are doing. So it is here to stay. People are already seeing the benefit of it, and I think it's only going to get bigger. Kind of like when I was 17 years old, and I felt like in general technology would transform the way we do our life. Like today, there
Yeah.
is no way I can't do anything without this little phone here. It has my entire life, and
I know. Me too.
I can't even imagine how my days would go if I didn't have access to this device. So if that device is so important to you, you need to do everything you can to ensure its safety and security.
No, I couldn't agree more. And, to your point about making sure that everyone and every, minority and demographic is represented, I think one of the other things that we need to be educating people about in our society in general is the potential for bias in these systems, to make
Yes.
sure that they're not blindly being put in charge of, decisions like credit applications or things like
Hmm.
that. Because I definitely see a future where AI is making almost all of these decisions because it's good at looking at large amounts of data quickly. But I definitely worry that those unintended biases though will go to show themselves very quickly as we see more and more of that.
Yes, that's why I really think we need to have human oversight and intervention. Now, one thing when this AI craze started a couple of years ago, people were thinking AI is just going to replace everybody's job and there will be
Yeah,
no need for human. I don't think that would ever be the case because we still need the oversight of human.
we
Like
do.
even in cybersecurity, I can tell a lot of the entry level things that a lot of our analysts do. Yeah, I think AI probably is much better than human to do that. But
Yeah.
even so, though, I think you still need the human intervention just to better understand the context and some of the uh, this decision you make. Like even in the military, sometimes thinking about robotic and AI and warfare in the future, maybe we can save human life. But even so, you still need a human being to get in the loop and say no, this is the right call, or no, this is not what we should do. So I think there is definitely a great need for human intervention in AI in the future.
I agree. I think AI empowers people to do more, and I see a
Yes.
future where the average person is doing, multiples more than what they were able to produce pre-AI.
Hmm.
I would think I don't know what it'll be, but I would think easily 300 to potentially 500% increase in productivity, and so I do
Yes.
see a slow in hiring in the future because we're going to be able to do more with the people that we have. Um, that's just sort of my prediction about what we start seeing in 2025. And I do think it'll go to lower the gap that we have currently that exists inside of
Hmm.
cybersecurity. Because we have like 500,000 unfilled jobs in the US right now in cybersecurity. It's just a ridiculously
Yeah,
high number.
I think globally it's almost 3 million. They say yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So not even close. I'm like 1/6 of the actual number.
Yes. Yes. Yes, and AI is going to help, but again, I still believe that we are going to need people who are going to kind of provide that oversight. So if I was just going to college now or graduating in college the next year or two, I would really think hard about getting into this trending tech, right? Whether it's
Yeah.
artificial intelligence, quantum computing, I think that's going to be very, very big soon. Like not
Yeah.
don't go to school for a job that even exists now, but for a job that doesn't exist yet. I think you need to have some technology and leadership skills that are going to allow you to, I guess, always be employable. And definitely,
Yeah.
cybersecurity and privacy are really great field to be in, especially for those who have been underrepresented for a very long time, women and ethnic minority. I think that's definitely where you should be spending your time, your energy to really add a lot of value in the near future.
Yeah, I don't even think we truly understand all of the different roles that are going to be created around AI too. I mean, you look at cybersecurity and, 25 years ago, everyone in cyber was the same, just about. But now you've got a million different specializations inside of cybersecurity. It's such a vast field that none of us
True.
could possibly know it all. The reverse engineers still just impress me every single time I get an opportunity to work
Hmm.
with them because they're just brilliant. But it's a vast, vast field, and so I expect that we're going to see the same with AI. Like, people that work on data wrangling and mangling, and people that specialize in in training those models, and people that
Yes.
specialize in working with and getting the most out of those models, or even just automation within companies, because I do think that little like basic scripting to start automating more and more stuff is going to be a core part of what we do. I know pre-GPT, I never wrote scripts to automate stuff, and now I always do, because it's 10 times quicker for me to throw a script into Google Apps Script and have it done than to do it myself.
True. And I think this also speaks to the diversity within technology, and specifically cyber security. Because I also remember, I think it was 2005 when I started doing cyber security
Yeah.
full time. Back then, really, the emphasis was on STEM education, right? Science, technology, engineering, and the math.
Yeah.
I really don't think that we should restrict ourselves. I think there is a lot of things to do. There are a lot of demand within cyber security that we can really attract people, even those that would traditionally be kind of outside of the reserve, if I may say so. Like you having a training in marketing, I think you really add a completely different point of view than people like me who've done STEMs of all of our life. Even people who are in art or legal minds, very, very important, because there is really so much to do that we really need all of the talent, all of different perspective, and I feel like there is room for everyone within this big umbrella of cyber security. And I think one of the vulnerability I've seen in a lot of the Silicon Valley startups here is also that they tend to hire people who look exactly like them, who come from the same school, who think exactly the same way. So they tend to all think one way and one way only. And I think that is, in long term, that is very, very bad for the
You
organization, because
need the
you all
diversity.
have exactly, you all have exactly the same blind spot. But having people from different ways of thinking really adds a lot of value to the team.
Well, wholeheartedly, I agree with that. You mentioned the marketing. It's funny because when I first got into ethical hacking, I had this mentality that I was never going to use social engineering. I was only ever going to be the most technical hacker, break in technically every time, right? And then quite literally, my very first physical penetration test, I talked my way into a bank vault. I'm like, okay, so maybe social engineering is for me, right?
Yes.
And then I don't know, the next one, I talk my way into a casino money cage. But that same skill set that made me really, really good at the social engineering has also really applied in the security awareness side of things, because I asked myself a long time ago, well, how do we take social engineering, the thing that's used against us, and use it as a form of defense? And it really is just behavioral science, but there's so much of it, like, space learning theory that talks about it's the foundation of advertising, but it talks about how if you break things into tiny little bite-sized pieces and you deliver them to people at a very high frequency, that you'll get a really, really high retention. It's the reason that Coca-Cola is a global brand. And so, taking those types of rules and applying them to cybersecurity, to me, is the answer for how we become more effective in what we do, and not just address those compliance requirements that we have, but also change that behavior enough that we can see it in the metrics that matter. Are we reducing the number of incidents? Are we reducing our time to detection? Are we reducing our time to resolution?
No, that is so true. One quick story. One of the best decisions I ever made was to actually go back to school and earn a master in business administration. I think that really helped me a lot, especially developing into an executive in this field, and learning marketing and sales. That's extremely important. Well, for a couple of things. One, usually IT, security, legal, we kind of as a cost center. We don't bring in any revenue, but we cost a whole bunch. So you being able to prove to
I don't know what you're
the
talking
senior
about.
to the senior leadership of your organization, hey, I am fully aligned with sales and marketing. Actually, because of me, you are able to get bigger and better customer. The government can become a customer because of our cyber security practices here. But
Yeah.
but anyway, it really becomes one of the selling points for your product or services, which is great. But also even internally, being able, because sometimes you almost never have a budget. You need to do what you need to do, and you need to kind of borrow the budget from engineering, from finance, from HR, and really coming together and doing something that is going to benefit them in the pursuit of a specific objective in the business function, but also in ensuring that they do it in a safe and secure way. But a lot of those tactics, you really get it from marketing, right? So I guess what I'm saying is it's not just a technical field, but you have a lot of soft skills, and salesmanship, I think, is extremely important. Sometimes just being able to present in front of a great group of people, speak clearly, but also kind of get their buy-in why cybersecurity is important to them in the way they do their job. So like I said earlier, there's definitely room for everybody in this growing and exciting field.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. So, what KPIs are you tracking when it pertains to phishing simulations and security awareness?
Okay, with KPI in general, I like to say that it really depends on the organization, uh, the mission of the organization, and the industry. I don't really believe that you can have some cookie cutter KPI that you can just apply to any organization. As a cybersecurity professional, I think kind of what I mentioned earlier, you shouldn't be doing cybersecurity in a silo, right? You really need to understand the context of your organization and your specific industry. Like the way I do cybersecurity for higher education, very different than what I do for military, for the army,
Yeah.
or the Navy. Very different again from what I do for high tech companies, especially startup who really want to get to first to go to market. They want to absorb a lot of risk so that they can make a whole bunch of profit. Completely different mindset. So
Yeah.
I think you kind of need to start there, and then you need to think about, okay, what is important for the user? What is relevant, right? How can I show the importance and the distinction that cyber security makes? Now, like I said earlier, generally speaking, we don't bring in any revenue at all, and unless you are a security company that sells like product or something, otherwise no, you don't bring in revenue, but you cost a whole bunch of money. So how can you show to the board of the director and the senior leadership of your organization that the money that they are investing in your program will produce a return on investment? Again, that's where the kind of the business mind come
Yeah.
into play. So again, depending on all of that, you really have to take time to think about this strategically and come up with KPI that absolutely makes sense for where you are right now. And again, as the organization grows now, those might change as well. But you really want to see how, what is the impact of your program? Why should there be a cyber security function at the organization? What is the justification for all of this money that the company is investing? What difference it is making? And that also depends on whatever technology you're using to your tech stack. Are you all on-prem like we all used to be 15 years ago, or is everything now in the cloud? And then if it's in the cloud, which cloud? Is it AWS, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud? So all depending on all of those specific things that your specific environment, then you come up with the best KPIs that are meaningful to
Yeah.
you, and
Okay.
that
No.
makes sense to your oversight.
No, that makes perfect sense. Are you familiar with the CMMC guidelines going into effect?
Yes, you are talking about all of the contracting
Yeah,
company for the DoD, right? Yes.
yeah, the ones with CEI. So
Yes.
I read that law as, or that new requirement rather, as stating that you have to train a bunch of different roles all of a sudden, and
Mhm.
that it's no longer a one size fits all. Is that how you understand the requirement too?
Yes, but I know for the DoD that has been quite a challenge because we have contractors like IBM, like some of the big ones that have a lot of money, some of them billions, and then you also have very very small DoD contracting com-
Yeah,
company led by a woman or a minority, maybe only has 5 or 6 employees, and you are trying to have a standard that is going to apply to all of them, but all of them may not have the same resources, and also because of that, sometimes right for like a nation state or whatever, it might be very difficult or impossible for them to breach into some of our secure Navy system, especially on the high side secret or top secret. But it's going to be relatively easy for them to go to a DoD contracting company, break into their system and get the same data they would have had on the Navy system. So I think there is a lot of push and pull, but definitely having different roles is, I think, the right thing to do. But of course, that is going to add cost. I guess it's the cost of doing business. I don't know. In my opinion, we kind of have to be flexible and kind of monitor how it is actually implemented. I think everything is really in the implementation. And at a very high level, I also think, generally speaking, we really try to be as vague as possible, not to pigeonhole people. But it's really a principle of security, I guess, that people really have to be able to apply. That's why even when I work within an organization, I know we have to be compliant to this
yeah,
framework, whether it's NIST, ISO 27001 or whatever. Yeah, most of them tend not to be prescriptive, right? They don't tell you, hey, you have to have a firewall and you need to purchase your firewall from Palo Alto Network. No, it's just very, very general what you need to follow. And I think it's done on purpose. But I think you also need to use some common sense. Really think about the risk. What is the risk to your organization, to your industry, and what you can do to reduce that. I think as long as you are able to clearly show that you've done everything you can to have a manageable risk, I think any auditor will be able to buy into whatever security control you put in place. I kind of hope this kind of answer the question, because it is definitely a challenge for a lot of organization, because I also used to be a virtual CISO, right?
yeah.
Security consultant, and many of my companies were brand new. Like one of them only had 12 employees, have been around for only about a year, and they really needed to get more client and bigger client. And because those bigger clients required security measures, that's why they became our customers. So we had to be a little bit creative because they didn't have a very big budget at all. But still shows that, hey, this is the risk that we are facing, and this is what we are investing in, the control we are putting in place to address those specific issues. But of course, if you have a big company like Microsoft or Google, they would apply those control in a completely different way, and they have a lot more money, budget, and people. But really understanding, I think, the spirit behind the framework and the directive, using some common sense, but definitely uh, uh, assessing the risk, knowing what the risk is, and addressing it, I think is what's going to take you a long way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, one of the ways that I love to end this show is I've found everyone in cybersecurity has a pet peeve. Um, Tell us what your biggest pet peeve is,
Hmm.
and we'll end with that here real quickly. What's your pet peeve? Get on your
Okay,
soapbox here.
I might add a couple.
Go for it.
Generally speaking, let me talk about the people on the cyber security and people who would work for me. I'm going to work with every day. I understand to err is human, right? We all make
Yeah,
mistakes. That is a given. Now, hopefully, you make a lot of mistakes earlier on, and then you learn from those mistakes, so that when you get to a level where the risk becomes significant, because this is the thing with cyber security, which has just justified my job in many companies, the cyber security is so critical that it could literally shut down a company where you would completely close the door of your business because of a cyber breach that
Yeah.
has been, so it is very, very important. Yes, we do make mistakes, but you really need to learn from your mistake and try very hard not to repeat the same mistake twice. That is really what I ask of myself and everybody who works for me. Yes, you are human. You will make mistakes, but really think about what you are doing, and when you do fail, really learn from your failure. Because in my experience, success doesn't teach you very much, but failure is a great, great, great teacher. I think it was JFK who said, "Success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan." But it's in those times that you really need to dig deep and understand why did we fail, what did we do wrong, not to assess blame, but to learn from it so that you don't repeat the same mistakes over and over again. Because like I said earlier, human beings, we tend to be creatures of habit. The way we do anything is usually the way we do everything, usually. And if we can really change our mindset and change our behavior and learn from our mistake, I think it's going to be better for everyone.
Yeah, I actually that's a great pet peeve. Really, the pet peeves the people not learning from their mistakes, I assume. But no, to that point,
Yes.
I got an opportunity to test the infamous OPM app, and let's just say they learned nothing from their mistakes. So
Yeah,
um,
unfortunately. Yeah,
I
that happens, but yeah, but the thing is, in the 21st century, this millennium, I really think we have to be learning organization, right? I think when my
yeah,
grandparents were around, you go to school, you learn one time, and then for the rest of your life, the next 20 years, you don't have to learn a single thing. But today, that's just not the case. We have to learn and keep learning. Like now, AI is this thing that's disrupting everything. You're a cybersecurity professional. You have to learn about AI. How are you going to secure it, right? It's always learning. So we need to be lifelong learner. There is really no way around it. And the way you make decision is not just based on your own ideas or biases or anything like that, but it's based on the data. What is the data telling you, and what is the best decision to make now? And you also don't have to wait until you know everything 100% before you make the decision. I learned that from Common Powell. Sometimes when you have 60, 70, 80% of what you need to know, you need to make a decision then. And if it's the wrong decision, that's okay. Learn from the feedback loop and then change it. It is
yeah.
perfectly fine to change your mind, but you need to have that mindset that I'm going to grow, I am going to learn, and I'm gonna make a decision. And if it's not the right one, I am willing to accept. Yes, I made a mistake. Learn from it, and then adjust. I think that's just
Yeah.
the only way we're gonna be able to survive.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, all of the most successful people in the world have failed the most because they're not afraid of
Yeah.
mistakes. They know they're not going to get every decision right, but they have to be, very action oriented. And so I couldn't agree more. This has been an absolute blast having you on. You're